A profound insight from ancient wisdom offers a quiet but urgent observation. Your inner light is being drawn upon, and many of you may not even sense this exchange happening. Within the quiet contemplation of the human heart, a subtle pattern was observed, one so profound it was shared only with caution. It was seen that individuals with a deep capacity for feeling, those whose hearts are open to the world, were often being subtly depleted by what we might call unconscious patterns of taking. These are not overt aggressors. They often appear as kind, perhaps wounded souls, who seem to be in genuine need of your warmth. But a deeper observation reveals something transformative. They have learned, without conscious intent, to sustain themselves by drawing from the vital energy of others, especially from those whose inner radiance shines most brightly. The most profound aspect of this. The process is almost invisible. It unfolds through emotional currents that feel like genuine connection, through bonds rooted in shared pain that are mistaken for profound love. It occurs when your own compassionate nature is turned back upon itself, creating a cycle of giving that never returns. Ancient wisdom suggests that those with open hearts are not simply attracting challenging dynamics by chance. You are being sought out by those whose own inner flame has dwindled, who can only feel warmth by drawing near the light of another. Join me as we explore this subtle landscape of the human spirit. Let us learn to recognize these currents of energy before they unbalance us, and discover a timeless method for transforming from a source that is drained into a wellspring that is sovereign, all without losing the beautiful gift that makes you who you are. Because here is a truth that modern understanding is only beginning to grasp. Your profound sensitivity is not a flaw. It was forged in the fires of your early life, shaping you into a perfect vessel of compassion. An old teaching says, when two streams of life meet, if there is a true merging, both are forever changed. But a quieter, more sobering truth was also observed. When a giving heart meets an unconscious taker, often only one current is altered, and it is rarely the one that takes. Consider this from the perspective of life itself. Your heightened sensitivity was developed as a way to navigate your world. The child who could feel every subtle shift in the home, who could anticipate the unspoken needs, who could absorb the emotional atmosphere, that was the child who learned to find harmony in chaos. Yet, here lies the great paradox. The very gift that protected you in your youth now makes you a beacon for those in their adult lives who have learned to use your gift to fill their own emptiness. Modern explorations into our shared human connection confirm what the wise have always known. The hearts of sensitive people resonate more intensely with the feelings of others. You literally feel the emotional state of another as if it were your own. But what is often missed is that some have learned, unconsciously, to use this natural resonance for their own benefit. They don't just happen to stir your empathy, they have learned to activate it strategically. They have mastered the art of creating an emotional pool that feels like closeness, a bond of shared suffering that feels like deep intimacy, and an exchange of energy that you mistake for mutual connection. But that is not the most depleting part. If you have ever felt completely empty after spending time with certain people, with no clear reason why, perhaps you might quietly acknowledge to yourself, they were drawing from my wellspring. The most depleting part is a subtle reversal of perception. The one who takes your light doesn't just receive it. They create a story where giving it away becomes your highest purpose. This pattern has been observed time and again. An old insight states, everything that disturbs us in others can lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves. But in the dynamic between the giver and the taker, this is inverted. The taker projects their own inner void onto the giver, convincing you that feeling drained is normal, that your exhaustion is a measure of your love, that your depletion is a sign of your devotion. Think about the last time you felt utterly spent after an encounter. Your body likely sent you clear signals, a sudden wave of fatigue, a feeling of being emotionally overwhelmed, a tension in your being, or a fog in your mind. But instead of heeding these signals, You may have told yourself you were just being too sensitive or reading too much into things. This is precisely the belief that allows the dynamic to continue. It is a form of inner gaslighting, where another's unconscious need convinces your conscious mind that your own intuition is the problem. Here is how this subtle exchange often unfolds, and its precision is what makes this insight so transformative. Step 1. Sensing the wellspring. Unconscious takers are drawn to your inner light like a traveler to a warm fire. They can sense your emotional generosity from across a room. They recognize the radiance of someone who gives more than they take, who feels with great depth, who carries the emotional weight for others. Step 2. The offering of a shared story. The taker does not approach with overt demands. They approach with their pain. They share their past wounds, their present struggles, their deep-seated emotions. They mirror your own depth while concealing their inner emptiness. Ancient wisdom teaches, the journey of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, but these souls have learned to become who you need them to be in the moment. Step 3. The unlocking of your compassion. Once they have engaged your desire to help, the steady drawing of your energy begins. They may create one small crisis after another, each requiring your emotional support. They share their burdens without ever offering to help carry yours. They make you feel uniquely special for being the one who understands them when no one else could. And in this, you may mistake being needed for being truly loved. Step 4. The illusion of purpose. This is the most subtle stage. The taker helps you believe that feeling drained is proof of your deep bond, that your exhaustion is a sign of your love. You may even identify as a highly sensitive person to explain your overwhelm rather than seeing it as the result of a sustained one-way flow of energy. If these patterns resonate with the journey you have walked, know that you are not alone. This is a shared path. We invite you to join our community of fellow travelers by subscribing to continue exploring this path of awareness together. Sharing your experience by liking this video can also let others know they are seen. But here is where this ancient understanding becomes truly liberating. This dynamic was not seen as a personal failing. It was recognized as a timeless pattern, a meeting of the wounded healer and the one who is lost in shadow. An old teaching says, the most profound challenge is to accept oneself completely. For the open-hearted, this means accepting that your compassion can be used as a tool, that your gift can become a cage, and that your light can be diminished if you do not learn to tend to it. In this philosophy, every light casts a shadow. The shadow of the empath is not a lack of kindness. It is the unconscious desire to be indispensable, the habit of mending others, because being useful feels safer than being truly seen. The deep fear of being left alone that makes you willing to accept a draining connection over no connection at all. Those who unconsciously take are not malicious people plotting your downfall. They are beings driven by a deep inner hunger for a wholeness they have lost. They sense in you what they have disconnected from in themselves, the capacity for true feeling, authentic connection, and emotional presence. But instead of undertaking the inner journey to reclaim these qualities, they have learned to borrow them from others. They draw upon your emotional energy because they are cut off from their own source. They warm themselves by your light because their own inner flame has gone out. This creates a powerful psychological current. The more energy you offer, the more they seem to need. The more you try to mend them, the more brokenness they present. The more light you share, the deeper their shadow appears to grow. This is not because they are evil. It is because they are incomplete. They have disowned their own capacity for genuine feeling. So they must constantly seek it from an external source, like a vessel with a hole that must always be filled but can never remain full. Now you face what could be called the open heart's great challenge. You can feel their pain, their emptiness, their desperate need for the warmth you carry. Your compassionate nature yearns to help, to heal, to guide them out of their inner darkness. But a timeless truth changes everything. You cannot heal another by letting them consume your essence. You cannot love someone into wholeness by allowing them to drain your spirit. You cannot save someone who is, on a deep level, committed to remaining lost. Let me show you what this pattern can look like in different areas of life. The romantic connection. Sarah met David at a wellness workshop. He appeared profound, sensitive, and wounded in a way that called to her nurturing spirit. He spoke of his difficult childhood, his struggles with inner peace, his search for something more. Sarah felt seen, chosen as the one person who could truly connect with his depth. But after a few months, Sarah felt a constant sense of exhaustion. David would call her during her work hours, overwhelmed by emotional storms. He would pour out his troubles for hours without ever asking about her day. When she tried to share her own challenges, he would either diminish them or somehow turn the focus back to his own pain. When Sarah began to see this not as a connection, but as a current, she realized David wasn't seeking healing, he was seeking a source. Her empathy had become his sustenance, her emotional effort his foundation. When she started to create gentle boundaries, David's gentle demeanor vanished. He accused her of being distant, unfeeling, not the person he thought she was. The truth, Sarah had simply stopped allowing her wellspring to be drained, and so, David's unconscious pattern began searching for a new source. The family dynamic. Michael's mother had always been emotionally turbulent. She would call him with an endless series of crises, making him feel accountable for her happiness. If he didn't respond right away, she would express deep hurt, implying he was abandoning her. Ancient wisdom would recognize this as the devouring mother energy, the parent who unconsciously draws on their child's life force instead of nurturing it. Michael's empathy had been conditioned since childhood to respond to this need. When Michael learned about these energy dynamics, he understood his constant fatigue wasn't a sign of being a bad son. It was the natural result of being a primary source for someone who had never learned to find her own center. Creating space felt like a betrayal, but it was in fact an act of profound self-preservation. The professional sphere. Lisa worked with a colleague who was always in a state of personal crisis. This person would dominate team meetings with their private dramas, seek Lisa out for long, draining conversations, and make their inability to cope an emergency for everyone else. What made this so insidious was that the colleague presented this behavior as a sign of their sensitivity and depth. They cast themselves as the feeling one. In an unfeeling corporate world, Lisa's natural compassion made her feel obligated to offer endless emotional support. From a space of deep awareness, this is seen as projection. The colleague was making their emotional imbalance everyone else's responsibility, while framing themselves as a victim. But here is where the gentle warning becomes urgent. The longer you allow these dynamics to continue, the more you may begin to identify with the shadow they cast. You start to believe their projection that your purpose is to serve the emotional needs of others. An ancient teaching reminds us, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. For the open-hearted, this means recognizing that your impulse to heal others often arises from your own unhealed places. The shadow of empathy is the quiet, unconscious belief that your worth comes from your usefulness, that love is something to be earned through endless service, that your value is measured by your ability to absorb and neutralize the pain of others. This belief system makes you a perfect host for these dynamics. You provide endless emotional support while telling yourself it is love. You exhaust your own inner resources while believing it is compassion. You sacrifice your own well-being on the altar of what you believe to be spiritual growth. But there is an insight that will change how you see yourself forever. Your light is not meant to be a fuel source for others. It is meant to illuminate your own path to wholeness. When you constantly give your energy away, you are not being more loving. You are often avoiding the profound work of learning to love yourself. When you focus on mending others, you are often running from the quiet and sometimes frightening task of tending to your own inner garden. The unconscious taker becomes your partner in avoiding your own journey. They give you someone to save so you don't have to save yourself. They provide endless distraction so you don't have to face your own inner silence. They offer you the role of the selfless giver so you don't have to claim the role of a sovereign being. Here is a simple framework for protecting your inner light without closing your heart. Let us call it the PATH method. P. Presence. Cultivate a deep presence with your own inner state. Every person carries an energy signature that your sensitivity can read if you learn to listen. An interaction with an unconscious taker feels different in your body than one with a healthy person. With takers, you may feel drained, anxious, confused, or pulled off center. With givers, you feel energized, clear, peaceful, or inspired. Begin to gently notice how you feel before, during, and after your interactions. Your body is a wise instrument that can detect these imbalanced currents if you learn to trust its signals. Awareness. Bring awareness to your shadow. For the open-hearted, this means gently acknowledging the parts of you that need to be needed, that fear being alone, that believe love must be earned. Ask yourself with compassion, what do I receive from being needed by those who are broken? How does focusing on others help me avoid my own inner work? What old wound am I trying to soothe by mending others? The goal is not to judge these parts, but to bring them into the light of your awareness so they no longer unconsciously guide your choices. T. Trust. Trust the wisdom of your sacred energy. A wise teacher once said, "Your vision becomes clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." Protecting your energy is not selfish, it is a sacred responsibility. This means learning to say no to emotional tasks that deplete you. It means refusing to carry emotional burdens that are not yours. It means choosing relationships that are like a flowing river with a natural give and take. Your energy is your life force. Every moment you spend processing another's shadow is a moment you cannot spend cultivating your own light. H. Honor. Honor your authentic nature. Unconscious takers are often drawn to those who dim their own light to make others feel comfortable. The more you hide your gifts, deny your intuition, or apologize for your sensitivity, the more you become a target for those who wish to borrow what you are suppressing. The path of wisdom is about becoming who you truly are, not who others need you to be. For the open-hearted, this means owning your sensitivity as a strength, trusting your intuition as a guide, and using your gifts with conscious intention, not by unconscious compulsion. When you apply these principles, everything begins to shift. You stop attracting unconscious takers and start drawing in conscious souls who can meet your depth without draining your wellspring. But be aware, during this transition, those accustomed to drawing from you may escalate their behaviors. They will create larger crises. They may express deep hurt. They will accuse you of being cold, selfish, or changed. They will try to pull you back into the old dynamic by reminding you of their pain, their wounds, their need for your support. This is the last gasp of a pattern that is losing its power. This is a sign that your boundaries are working, even though it may feel like you are being unkind. Remain steady. Remember that their reaction is about their attachment to your energy, not about your worth as a person. You are not responsible for managing their emotions when they can no longer use you as a repository for them. The healthy people in your life will respect your boundaries. They will celebrate your growth. They will understand when you need space, support your journey, and reciprocate the energy you invest in them. But here is the most important part. You must become the kind of presence you wish to attract. If you desire conscious relationships, you must become more conscious yourself. If you seek reciprocal connections, you must learn to receive as gracefully as you give. If you want authentic love, you must show up as your authentic self, rather than playing the role of the endless caregiver. This journey to reclaim your light is, at its core, a spiritual one. An ancient teaching states, the journey of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But unconscious takers have a vested interest in keeping you small, depleted, and unaware of your own power. When you begin to protect your energy and establish boundaries, you are not just changing a relationship, you are choosing to honor your own spirit. This is not a metaphor. Your essence, your light, your life force is what is at stake. The old patterns will use every tool to maintain access to your light guilt. After all I've confided in you, you're just going to leave me. Shame? I thought you were a more compassionate person than that. Fear. If you act this selfishly, you will end up all alone. False urgency. I need you right now, more than I ever have before. Identity attacks. This isn't the real you. You've changed. But there is one ultimate response to these tactics: simple, quiet awareness. When you can see the pattern for what it is, it loses its hold on you. The truth is, every time you say no to an imbalanced energy dynamic, you are saying yes to your own evolution. Every boundary you set is an affirmation of your authentic self. Every time you refuse to dim your light for another's comfort, you are choosing spiritual growth over spiritual stagnation. This does not mean you become cold or unfeeling. It means you become discerning. You learn the difference between true compassion and codependent enabling. You discover how to offer support without sacrificing yourself. But here is a transformative insight. When an open-hearted person awakens to their own power, they become a challenge to systems built on unconsciousness. An empath who can no longer be manipulated, drained, or controlled threatens every dynamic built on an unequal exchange. You become a mirror that reflects another's unconscious patterns back to them. You become a boundary that gently forces others to take responsibility for their own emotional well-being. The awakened empath doesn't just protect their own light. They become a lighthouse that shows others how to kindle their own flame. You cease to be a source to be consumed and become a catalyst for mutual growth. But this transformation requires something that can feel terrifying at first. You must be willing to be misunderstood by unconscious people. You must be willing to let go of relationships that were built on your depletion. You must be willing to stand in your own quiet strength, rather than sacrifice yourself for a false sense of connection. The ancient saying is true: when two streams of life meet, both are forever changed. When you become an awakened empath, you can only sustain relationships with people who are also committed to their own growth. All others will naturally fall away. This is not a failure, it is discernment. This is not a loss, it is liberation. This is not loneliness, it is sovereignty. If you have been called selfish for setting a boundary, acknowledge it with the quiet thought: my energy is sacred. You will discover that you would rather have one authentic connection than a dozen draining ones. You will realize that the quality of your presence matters more than the quantity of people around you. You will understand that your light is too precious to be used as fuel by those who refuse to do their own inner work. There are 3 stages of this development, and understanding where you are can help you on your path to true sovereignty. Stage 1, the unaware river. You feel everything but understand little. You absorb the emotions of others without knowing it. You are often drained but tell yourself,